I greet you once again, dear students of BSCIT Year 2, and welcome you to the second part of our introductory lecture, pre-recorded lecture. And this simply follows up with the previous discussion we had, or previous presentation that I made on introducing you to the course unit and basically defining and understanding what research is. This particular recording is focusing on types of research. Please bear in mind that when you go out there, when you look through the literature, there are many types of research that are pointed out, but I'm giving you the most basic. And these are concepts. They are simply for you to understand that when you're writing your project, you need to bear in mind what it is, where your research falls. It's not always necessary that it's pointed out clearly in your report, but for you to have it at the back of your mind and also to guide you as you're selecting your methods, as you're writing your report, you understand where your research falls. So here we have some of the basic research types that exist. Again, I want to point out that as you're writing your report, it's not a must that you spell out and say that my research is basic, my research is applied, my research is this. No, is to have it at the back of your mind. Why is this important? In life, in everything that we do, we understand, we must have an understanding of, of where we are coming from. I'll give you an example. If I understand that, Sheba is a woman, Sheba is a female, that's first of all, that's it's already an understanding of how I should behave, how should Sheba carry herself being a woman, how should she speak, what should she do. Not that women have predefined settings and predefined functions in society, no. But how I should dress matters, how I should carry myself matters. Because I'm a woman, there are significant things about us. There are certain things that make us women, that basically make us very proud that we are women. For example, if a woman takes pride in her physical appearance, it's a good thing. It's a good thing, and we love beauty as women. So it's an important point. I don't have to come out and tell you, oh, I'm a woman, but there are certain things that will propel me to do that. For me to understand, for example, that I'm a lecturer. As a lecturer, I understand that my words have an impact. As I record myself, I think about my words, how I phrase them, how I bring them out. There are certain words that I may use on a daily basis. For example, if I'm talking to my niece, my nephew, I may say, oh, hi Zoe, hi so and so, because that's my niece. But if I'm talking to you, the relationship between me and you is that of student and lecturer. So the way I address you matters. So that knowledge being at the back of my mind predetermines how I must speak to you as my students, and also you in turn. So also for you to understand these basic research types, it's not that automatically your research will say this is this, but it will guide you as you think about your research, as you select your research method, as you select your the tools that you use to collect your data. It will automatically determine that. It will determine how you present your information. So it is important that you understand them. You understand where your research will fall and what exactly it is you want to do, what you want to present to the academic world. So on this slide, we have just a summary of of, of research types. Bear in mind that All research normally falls under these two, whether research is basic or it is applied. And all these other research basically fall under these two. So there are variations in types of research, and sometimes these are not set in stone. It doesn't mean that if I'm doing descriptive research, it doesn't mean I can't do empirical research. Or if I'm doing qualitative research, it doesn't mean that there may not be an element of quantitative. No, that is not the case. That is not the case. It is to understand the types of research, and then when we understand what we want to do, we may mix and match our research. So let's start with the first one, basic research. For sure, most of you will not carry out this kind of research. For sure, this is normally done by theorists, people who are coming up with a new theory, most of the time which may not answer an immediate problem. So take an example. Somebody might come up with a new research method. Yeah, we shall when we look at research methods, there are different research methods, but somebody may decide to come up with a new research method. That is not solving an immediate problem. So that's what basic research is. That's what basic research is. It's also research, but it's not solving an immediate problem that we actually see existing in a specific context. So like as we see here, it focuses on theory development, methods, systems that advance knowledge and things like that. So this is basic research, and it's the most fundamental, or it's called pure research. It's being pure, meaning that it's not necessarily focused on a specific problem. Then we have the opposite, applied research, and this is where most of us fall when we're doing research. Yes, and for you IT students, most of you, this is where your research will fall. You see a practical problem that exists in the world in which we are living, in the current world that we live in, and you set about to investigate and solve that problem. So that is applied research, and this is where most of our research falls under. However, this doesn't mean that we don't rely on basic research. You will find that you are going to use a research method. That research method was developed by someone or some people who embarked on basic research. So you realize that all research depends on one another. You're going to use a research method which has been developed by a certain group of academics. You are going to use certain tools which were developed by a certain group of academics. So basic research, applied research in actual essence relies on basic research. So here we have some examples. For example, of types of research, like improve agriculture crop production. Yeah, embedding sensor networks in traffic lights. Develop a computer for blind people. For you being IT students, the most research that you find out there is somebody wants to develop a student information system for a school because they are using a manual system. Somebody wants to develop an artificial intelligence search engine to support e-commerce, things like that. That is typically applied research. So the other categorizations are descriptive and analytical. So we start with descriptive. With descriptive research, you may want to describe a certain situation to the world of academics. I'll give you an example. Maybe we have a situation, like in Uganda, we have a situation of female genital mutilation, which is basically female circumcision. And people may not understand why. Why do women in a certain tribe subject themselves to such a painful procedure? Why do they do it? It has no scientific value. Why do they do it? And somebody may say, okay, I'm going to go and find out why. That is typically descriptive. That is descriptive research where someone may say, let me go and understand and come and tell the world why these women do it. Here is another example. Someone may decide to study student attendance and find out UMO has so many rules as far as students attending classes. And now, added to those rules, we have online learning. So what is the situation like now? Is attendance there or is it not there? That is typically descriptive research. Then you have analytical. Now, analytical is typically opposite of descriptive. So here you apply critical thinking or your opinion, backed by some critical thinking skills. You get the same data or information and try to analyze it. You try to understand why. You even may try to find out correlation. There's research which is called correlational research, where you may try to say what is the cause of students attending less now that we're doing online, or students attending more classes as opposed to before. What is the cause behind it? Then you try to critically analyze and to give arguments. Basically, what you're doing is carrying out a critical evaluation of that content. Whereas before, when you are doing descriptive, you are simply presenting the facts as they are. Then we come to quantitative and qualitative research. With quantitative research, you're dealing with numbers. We may want to find out how many women are receiving the COVID-19 vaccination and how many versus how many men. Of those women, what are their age groups? Of those women, what are their occupations? And then maybe at the end of it, we'll find out maybe it's more women are receiving the vaccine compared to men, and of those women, it is maybe those who are in professional occupations as opposed to those who are in, I would say, maybe in subsistence farming. And women of this particular age group are receiving. We would use basically quantities. We would use quantities to explain that kind of research. The best source of that kind of research, I would say, would be found in Uganda Bureau of Statistics, because that's what they basically do. They collect population statistical data. They collect maybe statistics on how many health facilities we have in Uganda, how many schools we have, how many of these are private, how many are UPE schools. Of these schools, how many girls are going to UPE schools, how many girls are going to private schools, how many boys, and likewise in UPE and private schools, how many schools are in urban areas, how many schools are in rural, what is the distance, what is the average distance between a school and home settlements. Those are typical that they typically collect quantitative research. Then we have qualitative, the opposite of quantitative. So this one deals with understanding. And normally, we are investigating human behavior. Now, many times when I come across research from IT students, sometimes there's a tendency to try and mix and match. Usually for IT students, our research is normally qualitative. Normally it's qualitative. You may have a little bit of quantitative information, a little bit, maybe you might say, I interviewed this number of people, But normally our research is qualitative because we're trying to understand how maybe certain procedures are done, certain processes are done, so that we can translate them into systems. What is the behavior, let's say, of the finance person who's going to deal with the system? What is the behavior of of management that is going to deal with the system? What is their behavior, and how do we capture that in our system? That is, so usually our research is qualitative. We may have a tiny bit that is quantitative, but usually our research, when we're developing systems, leans more towards qualitative. Then we have conceptual research and empirical research. So conceptual research is usually research that deals with coming up with ideas or theories, more leaning towards basic research in actual sense. So conceptual research, just like basic research, doesn't normally come in to solve problems, but it is, however, I would like to say it can be a backup for all other research, applied and even empirical research. Why? It tries to get existing issues and then tries to conceptualize them. Let me give an example. Let me give an example of that. We may observe, I may be in a home and maybe I have a daughter during this time of COVID, and then my daughter comes and gives me a bombshell that, oh, my daughter is maybe even in primary school, maybe P7, and my daughter comes and tells me, oh, mommy, I'm pregnant. So that's a problem. If I'm a parent, I'm not a parent, by the way, but to imagine if I was a parent, that would be a problem that comes in. My daughter, she's underage, she's in school, she's pregnant. What is going on? Who got her pregnant? How did this happen? When did this happen? And all these questions come up. What will her future be like? Can she go back to school? Will she manage giving birth? What are the financial implications? And all these questions may come up for me as a parent. So that is a specific problem that would exist. Now, somebody doing, let's say, empirical research may come in and start saying, let's examine. There's a parent called Sheba who has reported a child. There's another parent X who has reported also a child. There's another parent Y, Z, and so on and so forth. And then that person will come and examine each one of us. The child got pregnant when? During COVID-19. Each one of us, that fact may be evident that we all have children of school-going age. Our children got pregnant during the time of COVID. Who got them pregnant? For Sheba, it might be a neighboring boy. For person X, it could be a relative. For person Y, it was maybe we had workers coming in the compound. Because the child wasn't at school, so on and so forth. And all these, the person doing conceptual research will get the person who's done empirical research, that data, and try to conceptualize the idea of girl children who are of school going age during the time of COVID. What could I term that as? What could I term that phenomenon as? Can I theorize it and say a girl child not fully occupied may end up prematurely pregnant? That could be a concept and a theory that the person may come up with. That's an example. Normally, conceptual research is done by philosophers. Normally, those who philosophize. Take an example, people like Socrates. I don't know if you've done people like Socrates, Aristotle. These normally come up with conceptual research or theories, which we all later on use. Then we come to empirical research. So empirical research is the basic opposite of conceptual research. This is where we come to testing. We actually do You can do experimental research, you can do lab tests, you can do social tests, test theories within a social context, whatever it is. You're basing your research on facts, not on ideas, but on facts, to understand what happens or what does not happen. I'll give you an example. My particular research when I was doing my PhD was on sustainability of applications, ICT4D applications in rural settings. Now, where did I come from? My research came from that there was a belief that the minute there is a constant belief that the minute you bring ICT4D in a developing context, or any ICT application in a developing context, automatically it will bring about development. That was a belief, but constantly as researchers, as ICT designers kept bringing up one application after the other, these applications would last only when the donor is there, then they would disappear afterwards. So the question was why? Why are these things failing? And the emphasis at the time in all ICT4D literature was that there was no empirical research. In other words, there was nothing to say, let us put something there, we test it and understand why it works, why it doesn't work. So my research was going in to say, I'm going to put something within a developing context and understand why it works, why it doesn't work, and then report back. So that is typically empirical research. So basing on what was observed within the context, for example, when we handed in our research, when we handed mobile phones, or rather when we saw rural community members with mobile phones, we realized that many people didn't know, could only make a call and receive a call. That's it. If you send that person a text message, the person didn't know how to read it, didn't know how to retrieve it in the first place. So we realized mobile phone literacy levels were low. And that was something we reported back in our research. But this was something that wasn't known before. So that's what empirical research does, where you put something and then you report back. So in a nutshell, those are the different types of research that we have. One, we shall realize that our research as we go along will definitely fall under empirical. It will definitely be qualitative as IT people, and it is most definitely going to be descriptive. Rarely will you have critical thinking in our research. It's going to be descriptive. Why? Because you take an example, you want to develop a system for a context. Maybe you want to develop a system for the university, maybe the registry department. You're going to have to go into the field and find out, the registry department, and find out how do they carry out their business processes. Who are the actors there? Then you describe it, and you describe definitely. Then after that, you will translate that into a system, you describe your processes, then develop the system. That is descriptive. Maybe you will test it, and when you test it, you will say, oh, I got error XYZ, I got this working perfectly. That is empirical because you're reporting back. This works, this doesn't work. This does this does not do this. That is empirical. So you will notice that the research will fall in certain research types. So with that in mind, with this discussion we've had, and you being given time to think about it, I would advise, go to the internet, go to Google Scholar, type in any research area and pick out an article. For example, I went online, and because I have my interests in mHealth applications, I went in and typed a small article, and I picked out an article, and that article was saying that they were reporting on assessing mHealth applications, and they went ahead and talked about the research method they used, which was literature. They went out and did research, picked out literature online in journals, and to find out what mobile applications had been assessed, and they went ahead to describe. So for me, when I looked at it, I found that that article, that type of research was basically descriptive in nature. It wasn't analytical in nature, it was descriptive. So go ahead, look for an article, and then report back. When we meet online, we shall use Padlet. You will tell me that this is the article I found, and you will show it to us. And for me, I believe this research is descriptive in nature, it is analytical in nature, it is qualitative, it is quantitative. You will let us know where you believe this research falls. We want at the end of this to have a good understanding of each type, and we can identify what research type that we have. So with that in mind, I want to thank you for listening to both the two recordings that I've made. I want to thank you for listening to me. I want to thank you. I should have done this at the beginning. I first of all want to thank you for being UMU students. I really want to thank you. You could have chosen any university, but you chose UMU. And we hope that we don't disappoint you as we go along. So please listen to these videos. I hope that you listen to them. I hope that they are of use to you. Correct me where I'm wrong, where I may not have been clear, let me know. And we are going to have discussions online on Moodle. I'll put up discussion forums where you may air out things that may not be clear, so that when we have our Zoom sessions, we try to clear up any area, anything that was not understood. So I thank you once again, and we shall meet either on Zoom or face to face.